these new things that are happening. You know.
Let's grab a question.
So, Mike, I want to go back to the whole thing. You say the reason that you can't go from the top down is it's money. It costs too much. And so, you know, we're trying to find, from my perspective, a technical solution for this when, all right, it was implemented because there's lots of loss going on. There's lots of fraud going on. How much does that cost? How much are we spending on the auditors alone that aren't fixing things? Why don't we go back to the pointy-haired bosses? We're all good at math. Why don't we show them that it's going to cost a hell of a lot less to spend the $25 on the front end, and then we can go do the fun stuff, and it's the social engineering upwards to make the world better. So I'm calling bullshit on you about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for the commentary.
Thank you.
You know, I'm not going to defend PCI, but the point is PCI is not causing this on their own. It's a public perception thing. So this room, you know, professionals who know better, we need to be very, very clear and very, very consistent. And the PCI Council needs to be consistent that compliance is not security. That it's a pretty broken system if 70%, 80% of the dollars spent on security are spent on PCI. The intended scope of PCI is credit card. Now, APTs are targeting intellectual property and other things, but the market has conflated the digital dozen of PCI with industry best practices for all security because of the pointy-haired bosses. Now, that's their mistake.
Okay,
But
let's grab some comments and questions from the audience. Looks like we've lit some people up. First, I have an observation. A lot of us in IT have a reputation for not getting much exercise, but we all have some muscular necks, because I look around and we start this conversation and everybody's exercising their neck like this. What the hell? So this gentleman here first, and then we'll
move this way.
Again, actually, with that guy's comments, everybody's talking about money. You know, we don't have enough money to fix this. What's interesting is New York Times, Visa posted a 33% increase in quarterly profit last year. MasterCard posted $1.3 billion in profit. It's not a money issue. It's a people issue. They've got to fix this, and the people that are in charge of it can do it. We can fire them. If I didn't do my job, I'd get fired. I'm sorry. Fire the people responsible and get people in there that can fix it.
It's not Visa's fault, MasterCard. Why should they pay? It is, though. This is my point. Quid pro quo for being the world currency is,
You know,
you have to do it right.
I am a huge advocate.
Council is Amway.
I am a
PCI
you know. I think that there was a comment.
There's a quote for you.
Materially better today than we were in 2001.
Hold on. I would challenge everyone, regardless of your view on this topic when you leave here today, to consider for a moment personal responsibility. I want us to all leave here today and think, what am I doing, right? We can always say, what is someone else doing? But realistically, what am I doing about information security? There was a commentary from the corner over here where someone said, look, we haven't been able to do this for the past 10 years. What is new about PCI? Why can we not protect our data? This is not something that's new.
But I am doing my part. I'm paying the fraud loss.
Let's hear from. Go ahead. Yes.
You.
I know you're shy wallflower, but come on.
Just listen to the conversation, and I'm not a QSA, nor I'm not even level 1. But this is funny because it reminds me of the tobacco industry in regards of the fines. And the tobacco industry is killing people, but we're going to fine them. But we're not going to educate the people that what they're doing is causing them to die. PCI is doing nothing on the education side. Companies aren't even educating. Okay, so if a company's losing money, we're not showing the consumer the end user of what's going on, how to protect them. Why?
Well, let me jump in. That's something that actually was obvious to me, having come from a retail background. One of the things that most of us don't accept is that in retail you expect theft.
Yeah, shrinkage.
Right.
That's right.
Now, you can call it shrinkage if you want, but we all call it shrinkage when we're not. I mean, when we're talking to the auditor or assessor, but it's theft. It's stuff walking out. It's loss. It's missed inventory, and so there is an acceptable level of fraud. There is an acceptable level of theft and fraud, and that's the money. The pain point has to get to a point where it's no longer acceptable. But
And it has to be the point where the person incurring that pain.
Yes. Good. Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Well, loss of. No, sorry.
Well, if people stop trusting, if there's a decrease of trust in card transactions by 0.00001%, they would care. So media noise would actually might cause it. Sorry.
Yes, please.
Comments.
Somebody's asking, what amount of fraud will it take before we fix CCV pay attacks? What's the magic number?
What amount of fraud will it take before it gets fixed? That's a question. Let's let Anton talk. We've sort of hogged it from him. And
Actually, I'd rather take a couple more comments.
Okay.
What about you, front row?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, PCI should be only one level of protection. It's like the analog is convenience store only installing surveillance video, and a robber comes in, but they can pursue him. They cannot charge him because there's no system in place. So basically, we need that PCI, but we need also other bodies and organizations to basically prosecute and follow after these guys, because public industry individuals cannot prosecute people from other countries that do this damage.
Yeah, well, this is kind of like beyond this discussion. That's a bigger problem, I guess. Sorry, what's the comment?
Well, Antonio, you and I were talking about this on Friday night, and I think we're conflating two issues here, which is compliance in general for organizations, and PCI, which is meant specifically to protect against credit card fraud. And when you see, like, for example, on security score where we have all these vendors, and we look at what are they saying in terms of what you should be defending against, they're talking about compliance. They're not talking about PCI. We saw in the early days of PCI, they were saying, buy X because you'll be PCI compliant. Now you're seeing, which makes a lot more sense, just for general compliance, you should buy this. Because when you look at most of the compliance laws in the United States, they relate to having a minimal level of reasonable information security. They don't give you specific technical measures. It's PCI, and I think that's a really big question of whether it's appropriate. It says you have to do these gazillion specific technical measures. But I think in terms of people who are responsible for security in organizations, they can only get security budgets because of PCI. That's, to a certain extent, their failure to convince their organization that that deals with one very specific area, but we're bound both in terms of legal regulation and contractually to meet an appropriate minimal level of information security, which is completely independent of PCI.
One more comment. What's the story?
If you follow ISO standards or a risk-based approach, any approach that you want that you think is going to give you the most, the best way to protect your data, I guarantee you that the mechanism that you're going to come up with will involve analyzing logs. It will involve all the baseline controls that are in PCI. So you can say that it's too prescriptive, but you're not going to get around it. It's still, even if you use any other methodology, you're still going to have that issue. Right, but it doesn't mean that if there's a control that isn't specified in PCI, then it's not necessary. Of course.
Or that you cannot push it through. It does not mean that you can. It might be harder. But, yeah.
You know, it's interesting because it sounds like the debate really is the idea of that we all agree on best practices, right? And even beyond that term, there's a lot of things that we should be doing, right? And so the question is, why are we not doing them?
Yeah, I'll do it. So,
Since I speak to a lot of network and system admins, I want to throw one point out about our ability to communicate, and then I'd really like Anton to answer a few things. And one of those that I've seen, and I'm sure a lot of you are victims of, is that I speak to a lot more junior level people in the past couple of years. The experienced people have been cut out due to the economy or whatever, but also I think part of the reason that we're seeing a reduction in really skilled administrative personnel, well, part of it is our rock star culture where breaking stuff is cool and fixing stuff is boring, says the guy with the beard is talking at ShmooCon, but still. So yes, I am a hypocrite as well as an asshole, but I deal with a lot more junior people who don't know how to secure their system, don't know how to run their systems as well as they should, much less secure them, and expecting them to be able to talk to upper management is a burden they're not prepared for. And part of that is not just the economy, it's I've got a checklist, and if I have somebody who fills out the checklist, they're the security guy, as opposed to the the sysadmin that spent the weekend putting things together after, fill in your favorite explosion on the internet. That's how most of us that are over, you pick an age, that's how a lot of us old farts got into security, was because we had to fix the stuff when it was broken, and we just sort of backed in. It's like, well, how do I get to go home before 2 a.m. more often? And that is leaving us, I think, and that really makes this problem of how to speak to management much more difficult. But I'd really like to hear some more from Anton, because he's got a wide range of experience and practical experience. So let's give you a few minutes to...
Actually wanted to first hit this important point that raised about compliance in PCI payment security in particular, because the best way to answer or to start thinking about the whole point about why don't they, the brands, change the system is the following. I don't really know what percentage of Windows 3.1 code is in Windows 7, but I'm sure it's not 0. So the thing is, changing legacy stuff, as we all know, really hard. And changing legacy stuff that's installed in I don't know about 1 billion, but some triple-digit million places is kind of hard. So I really don't hold my breath for brands just saying, let's just scrap this whole payment system and do a new one, right? I mean, when I read about Internet 2 or some next-generation protocols, I always kind of laugh, because legacy stuff never dies. So with that out of the way, I want to go back to compliance as a way to motivate to do security, I mean, broadly defined. So with the payment system out of the way, we probably will be seeing more compliance. And why is that? And we probably will be seeing more prescriptive compliance, more like PCI, less like ISO. Because for some people, if you give them a really solid methodology, like to do risk analysis, to do this, to do that, they would look at it and they would say, wow, this stuff is complicated. So can we just, accept risk? And that will be the end of it. So the only way to motivate certain type of people is to give them a friggin' checklist. And yes, some people will get upset. Most people in the audience will get upset if some guy shows up and he's in a suit and he gives you a stupid checklist and says, show me 100.00% coverage of this. So yes, that is not a good thing. But at the same time, think about it. For every one of us here, there are maybe 10,000 people for whom that's the only way that would get them to do anything. And to me, that's really the theme that, I might disagree with it. I might not want to be given a checklist, but I know, and I've seen enough people for whom that checklist is the only way. And that is kind of sad, but that's what it is.
Anton's right. That group, the negligent, will only do something if you force them to. But just like No Child Behind, we've focused all the budget, all the attention, all the spending on the dummies. And it's dumbing down this industry. This is why it's an existential threat to this room and to the way we do our jobs. Now, the other fact of the matter, and we're going to run out of time, but let's just figure this out. The one thing I learned from Mike that I completely agree with is you can't just have the smart people fix this, because a breach in one merchant will affect one of the responsible merchants. It is a social disease, so to speak. But there's a logic flaw here, guys. There's a logic flaw. We are simultaneously saying that these negligent people are so stupid and so irresponsible that we must force them all to some minimum level of security, right? So they're completely incompetent on the one hand. But then when I talk about the efficacy and how the PCI standard doesn't actually prevent rampant fraud, we are year to year up in breaches, et cetera, I hear the defense that, well, if you implement PCI properly, you won't break in. So how can they simultaneously be complete morons that Jack deals with and flawlessly execute the digital dozen? So we really have to ask ourselves, I see PCI as a hypothesis on how to reduce fraud. Is it working? So we have to look at to judge the overall system. Is it working? Is the opportunity cost greater than the efficacy? What are the long-term implications on innovation and roadmaps and technology development if we allow this to happen? I don't think PCI is going away, but to quote the great philosopher Stan Lee, with great power comes great responsibility. And right now, PCI has all the power. I would like to see this organization, this group of people, challenge them to be more responsible with their power. Maybe that means we only do the deep cavity searches on the negligent population. Maybe there's a quick test for competency to get the other cardholder, the other merchants, the other people doing a decent job